Okay, so some practice routines sound like this, while others give you the biggest hit of your band. And that happened to Gary Livgren, who wrote Kansas' biggest hit song, Dust in the Wind.
In order to better myself, I learned it's called Travis picking. It's a finger picking pattern.
So Travis picking is basically where the thumb plays the bass notes, and the index and the middle finger are dictating the melody or the harmony.
Pretty hard to get the hang of, hard to pick up. And so I invented this finger exercise, which is what Dust in the Wind is.
Finger exercise.
It was nothing more than a finger exercise.
Oh, and did you know there's a sort of mathematical pattern woven into this chord progression? So where the chord changes every 2 bars from C to A minor, the top note is repeating a pattern that changes every 1.5 bars. So in the end of this intro, that's the only place where it resolves. It's pretty cool and it's really, really fun to play. Anyway, next up, live in the fast lane by a band who must not be named, the Eagles. So this little riff was actually inspired by a warm-up riff that Joe Walsh used to play before his shows. So he would play it faster and faster till it became that iconic song that we all love.
I had this lick that I played that I would warm up for a show with.
Okay.
And it's a coordination exercise between your right and left hand. And it's this.
So it's a riff played in E minor pentatonic, the mother of all scales for us guitarists. So I really get he's using this little riff, and it uses all the rock cliches in the book. Hammer-ons, the little microtone bends, little slides, grace notes. It's a lot of fun to play.
I was just playing, warming up for the show, and Glenn comes busting in my dressing room and says, "What the hell's that?"
I love it, yes.
And I said, "I don't know, it's just this lick I warm up with." He said, "That's an Eagles song, dude."
If you do it a few times, really your hands are warming up really quickly because of all the movements it's doing. It's really cool to play. Anyway, next up, let me call a friend of mine. Because I remember Dominic Miller telling me that Shape of My Heart started as a simple exercise. Let's see what he has to say.
Hey, Paul.
How are you? Good seeing you.
It started as an exercise. I was messing around with like piano chords, kind of like Chopin style chords, like in this key. Just playing with 6 kind of chords. But then I found that the rhythm wasn't really kind of satisfying. I think of the John Lennon style rhythm. I love that type of rhythm. Yeah. So I thought, how do I mix that rhythm with these type of chords? So it was easy. There it is. It was always E minor. That's when Sting heard me practicing. And he said, I really like that. And he started kind of humming something to it, and then he told me to go up a tone. So then I was like up here, which was kind of a bit awkward. And in the end, it was obviously easier to do it in a different finger position.
Yeah.
And then as we were doing it, he wanted to hear more changes. That's what we had to go somewhere, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That bit was sort of, we kind of came up with that together, that whole section there. So we had to resolve it. So it resolved really nicely to F sharp minor. So F sharp minor became the key. Beautiful. And so that's really how it happened. It really was a good example of how a songwriter can find an idea from a guitarist and turn it into a song. And as a guitarist, I never would have thought of it as a song. I thought of it as an exercise in 6 type chords.
Dominic, I want to thank you so much.
It's always good to see you.
All right, Dom.
Take care, Paul.
All right, so here's a riff that not only inspired John Mayer to write one of his songs, more about that later, but also started out as a stretching and picking exercise after being inspired by watching Robert Fripp of King Crimson play with his spider hands. So it's really fun to play. This is an exercise Dave Matthews from the Dave Matthews Band used to practice for hours and hours straight till he could play and talk at the same time.
That opening is based on an exercise that I guess whoever taught you guitar used to have you do, right? It was one of those finger exercises to warm up on. This.
Yeah. I would sit in the basement and play that for hours because I wanted to be able to do it and talk.
And it does really help develop stamina and dexterity, and it's also a great lesson in outlining chords and adding cool extensions to it. And a cool detail is that this piece is played in A flat. Who even plays a song in A flat? That should be illegal. Well, it was really a challenge for him to avoid the traditional guitar keys like C, G, D, A, and E, for example. He wanted to do something different. He's playing a dangerous game.
It was sort of like an exercise. I would just play it over and over again, and I would try and talk while I was doing it, and I'd make up silly lyrics to it. It taught me that you can separate my voice from my guitar.
But what I think is by far the most interesting thing about this riff is that when hearing it on the first time, you don't really hear the groove or the timing of the tune. It can go anywhere. It's only when the drums come in together with his vocal when you realize it's counted in a 6th, 8th time signature. That's pretty cool, right? Anyway, next up is a riff that always reminds me of Sting's Every Breath You Take, which by itself is a great... It's a great picking exercise and a great warm-up riff, but if you change the key signature, have a different guy sing over it, change the time signature, change pretty much everything, well, then you get John Mayer's Edge of Desire. And it's actually based on the previous song, Satellite, with the same challenges, the same time signature, the same stretches, the same groove, the same feel, but yeah, a different song.
Oh, Edge of Desire started, the year was 2008, and it was a practice thing. Not that different than Satellite, you know? You're going for the feel. You go.
And to be honest, I think John's technique is making the riff a little bit harder than it has to be. If you fret it like this, it's so much easier than the way John plays it. Have a look. He's using the thumb to play the lowest note, which creates a lot of weird stretches. I play it like this. But, well, if it works, whatever. But if you play it, I suggest trying it like this, because there's something very wholesome about it. Etc. See, there's minimal movement. It's really fun to play. So learning to play riffs like this is really great for your technique, but there's a moment if you want to be a better guitarist, it's just not enough. And maybe you've learned some skills already, but your solos still sound like you're just playing patterns up and down. Well, then I've got the right thing for you. I've been teaching guitar for almost 20 years now, geez, and I see this happen all the time, and that's why I made Next Level Playing. It's my online guitar course that will show you exactly all the important things you need to know when it comes to learning guitar and getting good. How we find target notes and use it to create beautiful melodic solos, and understand how triads are an important factor in all of this, and why sometimes using just dependent on the scale can be enough. And also we're learning that the modes aren't as complex as you might think. You've probably been playing them already. So we're learning all the techniques needed to be a well-rounded guitarist, and it will stop you from that mindless noodling without a clear direction. Check it all out at nextlevelplaying.com. Thank you so much. All right, next up, one of the world's most iconic guitar solos. What do you think? You guessed it. It started out as a warm-up exercise. Or so producer Ted Templeman said.
I walked in and Ed was sitting there kind of playing it. And I went, "What is that?" And that was Eddie Van Halen, said,
"It's just something I warm up with before each show."
And I said, "Don, roll tape."
So Van Halen's Eruption was just a little warm-up exercise that Eddie used to play before the shows. For the final version they recorded 2 takes and picked the one that seemed to flow. And Ed said about Eruption, "I didn't even play it right. There was a mistake at the top end of it. Man, I could have played it better." That's what I always think when I hear myself, by the way. Anyway, and so it happened. And I think anyone remembers the first time they heard this solo. He just changed the way we look at a guitar. This bit is very similar to the next riff, by the way. So as you heard, next up, it's the fact that practicing guitar not only makes you a better guitarist, but also writes music history. I mean, it can be heard in one of the most iconic intros ever written. This riff is actually quite surprisingly hard to play, as you can see in this video, so learning that it started as a finger exercise did not surprise me at all. This is Angus Young, lead guitarist for AC/DC.
Well, it started off as a kind of guitar practicing thing. Actually, it was on an acoustic guitar I had at home, and I had a little cassette, was fiddling with the guitar, and I thought, oh, that's interesting, so I just put it down on cassette.
And as we see, contrary to popular belief, it is not a legato riff where we just use hammer-ons to play the whole riff. No, he's actually alternate picking the entire thing, which requires exceptional right-left hand synchronization. Anyway, get your chops going, down, up, and you'll be there in no time, sure. Good luck, cheers.